Hello students, this video is going to go through the process of modeling this basic finger joint box in SketchUp. So we can see here, this is the box that we're creating. It has a single finger joint on each corner. So if we look at this box, and I'll do this just by quickly separating out these pieces, we can essentially see that there are two pieces that look similar for the ends, two pieces that look similar for the sides, and also a base piece. Now, if you look at the plans provided, so this might be available to you from our class page. If not, you might want to take a screenshot of the video at this point so that you can have this separate to look at the measurements. But basically, this is showing the two pieces that we will need to make that have all the measurements included. So in essence, we're going to have one piece that is 160 millimeters long and 90 millimeters tall, another piece that's 120 millimeters long and 90 millimeters tall. We can also see that our fingers are going to be 20 millimeters tall in these places, so we can see that in these two areas. And we can also tell from this diagram, because we look at the thickness of the finger here, that the wood that we're going to be using is 12 millimeters, because this measurement here indicates how thick the wood is going to be. And we can see that quite clearly. We're going to be essentially creating two of each piece, and the only thing that's not shown here is the base for this particular box, and that's going to be easy to work out once we design this. So there are a few ways we could go about this, but I'm going to do it by firstly essentially drawing these same flat pieces and then turn them into three-dimensional pieces by using the push-pull tool, and then I'll duplicate them and also then draw in the base. We'll also have to do some rotation of pieces. Now, if you would like to design them in a different way, so same measurements, but again, in a different method, then you certainly can, but I'm going to go through this process with you. So again, if you haven't already got these measurements some other way, you might like to take a quick screenshot at this point. So what we're now going to do is begin a new model, and I have here just a start of a SketchUp model. Now, as always, I all come over here to the letter I and just confirm that I am using the millimeter format of measurement, and maybe single decimal point precision would be good, just to make sure I'm not accidentally set in the American format of feet and inches. If you've used it at all before, it's probably already remembered your settings, but it's always worth checking before we proceed. And I'll just close that off. Next thing I'm going to do is just remove this person. I don't need them. And I'm going to begin by drawing the basic shape. So I'm going to start with the larger of the two pieces. That is the one that's 160 millimeters long by 90 millimeters tall. I'm going to do that with my rectangular tool over here. I always like to start my models from the origin for no other reason than it's just a good place to start. I'm just going to draw what is essentially the shape. So a longer side and a shorter side. And if I immediately let go of my mouse and start typing, you'll notice down the bottom here is my dimensions. Now, I haven't clicked on anything else, and that is the absolutely critical thing at this point. As soon as you let go of your mouse from drawing a shape or measuring a line or whatever else it might be, you don't touch anything else, you just type immediately, and you can put your two measurements in. So in my case, I'm going to type 160, and because it is two measurements, they're always separated by a comma, and 90. Now, I don't need to show the millimeter unit of measurement, mm, because my whole model is using millimeters. So if I don't include a measurement unit here in this dimensions box, it assumes it is the dimension unit of the model. But if I was going to put a different measurement unit here, I could. So for example, instead of saying 160 millimeters, I could have said 16 centimeters and actually put that unit of measurement in, and I would have the same effect. But for simplicity, I'm just going to keep working in millimeters and just type the numbers. So now at this point, I'm going to press enter, and if you watch carefully what happens to my piece, it seems to shrink. Now, it's important to remember that in SketchUp and in most modeling things, it's about the perspective. So for me, I'm zoomed out quite a distance from this piece. So what I need to do now is zoom in much, much closer so I can see my piece. So this is now the correct size. It's 160 millimeters on the longer side and 90 millimeters on the other side. Now I'm going to also draw in my second rectangle next to us, which is going to be 120 millimeters long, but also 90. So I'm going to again start by being on this red axis so that they're sort of stay in line. I'm just going to start by drawing again the approximate shape, so longer rectangle. And just like before, I'm not going to touch anything. I'm going to type 120, 90, press enter, and there you go. I now have two rectangles that are the right size. Now, the easiest way to work with this is to look at it from above. So I can rotate around, and I'm using the middle mouse button on my actual mouse. If you're using a touchpad, you can also do, I think it's a 2-finger touch to move around. And you can also come over here to your tools, and you can choose one of the rotation tools. I've already got it here, in fact, to rotate around. It's the same function, but I find having a mouse much, much easier. The other thing, however, you could do is because we want to look directly from the top, I can in fact use one of the built-in views. So I come over here to this thing that looks like a little movie clapper. I can click on that and I can use one of the built-in views. And if I choose this one here, it is the direct top view. So I click on that, I'm now looking directly straight down at these two rectangles. It's going to make it a lot easier for me to work now. So again, I'm going to pop that out of the way, and I'm also going to zoom in a little bit. Okay, the next thing I want to do is to cut out the corner pieces. So if I just jump back to the previous one, I want to cut these out. So the way I'm going to do that, I'm going to measure 12 millimeters in from the edges on both sides, and then I'm going to measure 20 millimeters down, up and down from top and bottom on each one. And that's going to give me the lines basically. And it's very similar to what I might be doing if I was doing this on a real piece of wood. So to do that, I'm going to use this tape measure tool on the side. And the tape measure tool is really cool because if I draw from a line, so you can see how when I move it up there, it locks onto that edge. And if I click and hold and bring it down, you can see that green line that's been drawn. It means I'm following the green axis, this axis over here. So I'm following the green axis straight down, and I can let go. And just like everything else, I can type in a length. So you can see down the bottom here, right, it's the length. Now I want that to be 20 millimeters. So let's type 20 and press enter. And I've got what we call a construction line. It's not a real line, but it's a line that I can use later on. I'm going to do the same thing from the bottom coming up, 20. And because when I drew these two rectangles that both started from this red axis, this line along here is also the same for this piece. If I wasn't sure if I did draw them separately, I might have to do my own construction lines on this one separately, but I'm able to use the one set of construction lines because I know that they're both sitting on this edge. The other line I need is from the edges, and they're going to be 12 millimeters. So draw one in and press 12. I need one from this one, 12. I need one from here. So again, I could draw any amount. So I'm going to stay on that line now and type 12, and you'll see it snap back into place. And I need one more there. So that's now giving us all our lines that we need. So again, if I jump back for a second to the original, on my larger piece, my longer one, I want to cut out the corners. And on the shorter one, I want to cut out the middle piece. So looking at what we have here, I want to cut out these corners on the big one, and I want to cut out this middle section on both sides of this smaller one. So again, there are a few ways you can do that. You could take your rectangle and snap it to the corner and then snap it to that construction line. And that's why construction lines are so good. They give us snap points. So I could easily do that. And I'll do that for a couple of these just for the sake of it. But I could also use my pencil. So I can start by snapping to that point, clicking to that point, and then clicking to that point, and very quickly draw some lines that give me the same thing. For the case of this middle one, I'm going to find that easy. So I'm just going to snap to those three corners. And again, I'll snap to each of those. So essentially, I'm drawing in the parts that I need. At this point, I don't need these construction lines anymore. So I'm going to take my rubber, which is not on my, yes it is, there it is on the top. Now remember, if you don't see a tool in your quick tools here, it's because you haven't used it recently. Do the dot, 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 and you'll be able to find all your tools there. And when you use one, it comes up in your recent tools. But your general tools up the top, you should usually always be there. If I take my rubber, and I'm going to rub out along the top, so I don't want to get too close, because if I accidentally rub over something, I could delete stuff that I don't want. We do have controls there or commands that are Mac to undo, so I'm just going to do that because obviously I didn't mean to delete those for real. But I'm just going to delete all these construction lines, and you can now see the shapes that I was talking about. At this point, I'm also going to delete these lines. Now, it's important to realize once I drew these lines around, these have become separate shapes. Okay, so when you cut completely from edge to an edge, you create new shapes. So if I take my rubber again, sorry, and I rub out this line, it's only going to rub out that section there. Now notice the fill disappeared because now it's not a closed shape, but I can easily just rub out these little bits of line that I don't want anymore. So that one there and there. And the same on this side, I just want to rub out that center piece, so that part of the line there. And you can now see those shapes look the same as those shapes there. All right, so the big piece and the smaller piece, they look the same, just obviously without all the measurements being shown. But I now have flat shapes. If I rotate again, you can see these are flat. So again, you can rotate with your mouse or your touchpad. You can rotate with the rotate tool like that. Or again, you could come over back to the views and maybe change back to one of these sort of side views. So very, very similar. That's sort of almost the view that we started with. Okay. What I want now is to use my push-pull tool. This is the part that now creates this into a three-dimensional shape, see? So I'm going to grab it and pull it up. I prefer to go up for no other reason than it makes sense to me. And again, we know that this is going to be 12mm stick. So like all these other things, I'm just going to go up by some amount, doesn't matter. Let go of my mouse, and then down the bottom here, not clicking, we know we're going to type, and you can see 12 comes in there, press enter, and it locks in place. And I'm just going to close this tab, sorry. So same thing here, any amount, doesn't matter, type the number 12 in, press enter, and we have our pieces. So far we now have the two pieces all measured correctly and the right thickness. But we know we need 4 pieces for our box, 2 of each. So I could copy them at this point, but before I go any further, I want to do a special step, which is to make each of these into what we call a component. Now it's important to know that each of these pieces is made up of individual lines, so each individual line, each individual face, as we call them, the sides, is a piece. If I was to accidentally delete a piece, so let's say I deleted that there, you can see it breaks the whole thing. So to make sure we don't accidentally do things that we don't want, what I'm going to do is select everything here that makes up this particular piece by using my selection tool and drawing a big box that selects everything. Now you have to remember there could be stuff behind or underneath it, so sometimes you need to rotate in the right angle or even hide some pieces that you don't want at the moment to make sure that the rectangle you're drawing only selects these pieces. But once I've got everything selected that I want to be part of this piece, I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to say make component. Give it a name. So I'm going to call this the side. It doesn't really matter, just a name that makes sense for you, and press OK. And now you'll see that this is a single piece. When I click on it, everything is selected and I can't accidentally just delete a little piece of it because it's a component. If I try to delete it, I delete the whole thing, which of course I'll undo. I want to do the same with this piece here, so let's component this. So right click, make component. Now it can't have the same name as another component, so I'll just call this one end. It again doesn't really matter. And I've now got 2 pieces. All right, we're almost there. We know we want 2 of these, but we also want them to be standing up. So let's rotate these pieces. So I'm going to now come and get my rotation tool, which is this tool here. It gives me a compass. And I need to think about how I'm going to rotate this. I want to basically take them here and stand them up. So I'm going to find a corner basically where I can have this showing the red axis. So this is, you can see how the circular compass is showing. If I click and drag out, I'm dragging along this green axis, and I usually go horizontally straight across to another point, click, and now if I move my mouse, oh, sorry, because I had this piece selected, let's do it a bit better. Take a piece where I can get the red, take it across an area, and then rotate. I can see I'm rotating around this point here where I first clicked in the red axis, around the red axis. Now, just like other things, I can rotate it myself, or if I look down in that bottom corner here, you can see I've got an angle showing up. And if I know my angle, so I want to go from here straight up, I know that's 90 degrees. I can just rotate a bit, and the same thing, type 90 in, press enter, and it rotates the correct amount. Let's do the same with the other piece. So let's take this one. So make sure you select it first. That's what I didn't do originally before. Find a way that it's on the red axis. So there you go. That's good. Go across a bit and rotate. And I'm going to say 90 degrees again. Now, there's one more thing I want to do with my rotation tool. One of these is going to be one side and this will be the other side. I want to rotate this one 90 degrees around again. But this time, I want to rotate that way. So I'm going to, again, pick a corner maybe. I like corners as a starting point. Go across, and if I try to rotate, oops, again, I had the wrong piece selected. Sorry, let's make sure we're selecting the piece first. Then our rotation tool. Now, if I did this, what way do you think it's going to rotate? Yep, it's going to do that again. This time what I want to do is I'm going to look from the top, and I want it to be the blue axis, right there. Go along the axis a bit, and if I rotate, it's doing that movement. So you've got to look at the way your compass is basically showing. But again, it's a 90-degree turn, so I'm just going to turn a bit, press 90, and there you go. I have this one rotated in the right direction. All right, we're getting very close. Only a couple more steps to go. The next thing I want to do is to move this piece to lock it in here. Now, if we come over here, this is our move, and because these are components, I can move it as one piece. Now, what's really great about this is it's hard to tell where it sits. Like that looks like it's getting closer, but in actual fact, it's way over here. But we can lock them in place. So if you think about the way this joint's supposed to go, this piece here is going to lock in place with this piece over here. If you really think about it, this particular corner right there is going to be touching this corner here. So when this slots in, this corner touches there. And I'm going to use that fact to lock them in place. So this is the piece I've got selected in blue. If I grab that corner and I move in my general direction, now it might be a bit hard to get there, so you might have to rotate to get it. I want to get to a point where I'm trying to lock those in place. Now, sometimes you can't get it. Again, it's all about perspective. So maybe what I might do is grab this bottom, which is going to line up with that corner. Maybe that's an easier one to get. Not quite. I might just have to move it out of the way a bit and keep working it until I find, here we go, you can see now it's starting to go to the right place. So I'm going to lock that bottom corner this time with that bottom corner down there. And again, perspective is important. So there we go. Trying to lock in place. No. Let's try that corner I wanted to go with before. Let's try this corner, locking with that one. There we go. I've locked it in place now. So the corners have locked in. So that's perfectly aligned with each other. So there's two pieces, and we just need to duplicate it now. So taking our selection tool, let's grab this piece still, copy it, and paste it like normal. I just do Control-C and Control-V on a Windows computer. You can do Command-C, Command-V. You can right-click. There's options as well. And just like before, I'm going to take a piece, and I'm going to lock it in. So I know that this corner should lock with that corner. So let's try and do that. That was nice and easy. Let's rotate it around so we can see a bit better. Let's select this piece. Sorry, that did not work. Press Escape to undo. Let's get the selection tool. Select that piece. Good. Copy and paste that again. Bring it out. And again, I'm going to grab a corner that I know should lock. So that corner should lock with that one there. Again, if it's not lining up properly, think about your perspective. You might need to rotate around a bit to get something, or even try a different corner. There you go. Oop, just missed it. There you go. They've locked into place. So now I've got all four sides locked in, but of course I don't have a base. Now, I'm not even going to bother measuring my base. I know my base has to fit. So all I've done is rotate underneath. I'm going to take my rectangle tool. I'm going to select that corner, and I'm going to draw a box or a rectangle to lock to the other side. And I've drawn a rectangle on top, or technically underneath in this case, the piece. Now, again, if I take my push-pull tool, I've got a single shape. If I pull down, in this case, you can see I'm making a new piece. So I'm just going to pull it down and out, and this is the one thing that wasn't shown in the diagram, and that is that the base is going to be made out of plywood and it's 3mm thick. So I'm just going to type my 3 for 3mm and press enter. And there you go, I've got a base. Now there's one thing left that you will probably want to do, and that is actually to turn the base into a component as well. But unfortunately, there's no way of choosing the base. So if I try to choose everything that's got the base, I'm also unfortunately choosing other parts as well. So this is the last thing I'll show you today, and that is how you can hide pieces. So if I choose pieces that I want, and remember these are all components, so I can grab them easily, I can go into, and I always forget which one it is. It is, and in fact, I'm going to do it with the right click menu this time. So if I choose a piece, right click on it, there is a hide option, and you can see it seems to have disappeared, but I haven't deleted it, I've just hidden it. And something that is hidden cannot be affected by most actions. So if I hide all those other pieces, then draw a nice big box without having to worry too much, like before, make component, whoops, I did make group instead, sorry, make component, I'll call this base. Okay, it's now its own piece that we can easily grab. And to show things again, I'm going to come back to that movie clapper that we saw before, and I'm going to say unhide. I'll just say all in this case. And there you go, all our pieces are back. So now we have sides, base, all as individual components that we could choose and modify later, all drawn to the correct size, all locked together perfectly. And that is now a 3D model that looks the same as what we did before. Obviously this is just exploded out, and it was done by using these measurements here. And that will be the starting piece that we'll actually be using in our class project that we've already talked about, I believe, before this video. So again, go through this step by step. I know this video is now sort of pushing 22, 23 minutes long, but you can probably see that once you've got the basic ideas and you're not sitting there trying to explain things to people, actually modeling this particular box should only take you really about 10 minutes. So have a go, make sure you've understood each of the steps because they're all really, really useful, and they will help you with modeling other projects, both more for this project and also other things you might have in class for the future. Thanks everybody, have a good go, and as always, if you need some help, please reach out.